Welcome to a journey through time, a gentle exploration of how we learned to control toys from a distance. Let your mind wander as we travel back more than a century, back to when the very idea of remote control was nothing short of magic. Close your eyes if you'd like, and imagine the year 1898. The world is lit by gas lamps and candles. Horses pull carriages through cobblestone streets. And in this world, a brilliant inventor named Nikola Tesla is about to demonstrate something extraordinary. Picture a small boat, floating in a pool of water at Madison Square Garden in New York City. There are no wires connecting it to Tesla, no strings, no visible means of control. And yet, as Tesla manipulates a small box in his hands, the boat responds. It turns left, it turns right, it moves forward and back. The audience is stunned. Some suspect trickery. Others wonder if a trained monkey is hidden inside the tiny vessel. But this is no illusion. Tesla has created the world's first radio-controlled device. He's transmitting invisible waves through the air, waves that tell the boat what to do. It's 1898, and the seed of remote control has been planted. Of course, the path from Tesla's boat to the RC toys we know today, that path would be long. Very long indeed. Let's drift forward a few decades, to a time when the idea of remote control toys is beginning to take shape. But we're not quite wireless yet. Not entirely. You see, before the magic of wireless remote control became practical, many early remote control toy cars had a secret. A tether. A cord that connected the car to the controller. Imagine a child in the 1930s or early 1940s, holding a small control box, watching a toy car zoom across the floor. It feels like remote control. It looks like freedom. But there's a wire, sometimes thin, sometimes barely visible, but always there, connecting controller to car. These tethered toys were clever for their time. The cord carried electrical signals, telling the car to go, to stop, maybe to turn. They were simpler than wireless systems, more reliable, less expensive, and for many children, they were absolutely magical. Even if that cord meant you could only drive so far before you had to reel it back in, like a mechanical fish on a line. But dreamers and tinkerers wanted more. They wanted true freedom. And slowly, piece by piece, they began to figure it out. By the late 1940s, something wonderful was happening. World War II had ended, and all that technology developed for military purposes, radar, radio communication, guidance systems, was now available to hobbyists. And a new passion was emerging: RC modeling. Picture basements and garages across America and Europe, filled with the smell of balsa wood and model airplane dope. Enthusiasts hunched over workbenches, carefully building not just model airplanes, but the radio control systems to fly them. These weren't store-bought kits you could assemble in an afternoon. No, these early systems were often home-built from scratch. Hand-wound coils, carefully soldered circuits, each one a labor of love. Flying a radio-controlled airplane in 1948, that was an achievement. It meant you understood electronics. You understood aerodynamics. You had patience and skill, and probably a good amount of money to invest in components. This wasn't child's play. This was serious hobbyist territory. And the systems themselves, oh, they were simple by today's standards. Beautifully simple. And limited. Early RC was often one command at a time. Think about that for a moment. Not smooth, proportional control like we have now, where you can make tiny adjustments to speed and direction. No, these early systems sent simple commands. One at a time. Turn on the rudder. Turn it off. Pulse the elevator. Wait. Send another command. It was like having a conversation where you could only say one word. Wait. Then say another word. Effective, yes, but requiring tremendous skill from the operator. Flying an RC plane with these early systems meant anticipating every move, timing every command perfectly. There was an art to it. A rhythm. and the mechanisms that made the controls move. They weren't the smooth, precise servos we use today. Many early setups used something called escapements. Mechanical actuators. Imagine a tiny mechanical device, clicking back and forth, ratcheting into position. Each radio signal would trip the escapement, and it would move the control surface one notch. Click. The rudder moves left. Click. It centers. Click. It moves right. It was mechanical. It was clever. And it worked, within its limitations. These escapements had been used in clockwork for centuries. Now, they were helping model airplanes dance through the sky. There's something poetic about that, ancient mechanical wisdom, meeting modern radio waves. But even as hobbyists were achieving these small miracles, the equipment was challenging. Early commercial gear could use vacuum tubes, those glowing glass bottles that powered radios and early televisions. They made RC electronics bulky, heavy, and expensive. Imagine trying to fit vacuum tube circuitry into a model airplane. The weight alone was a problem. And vacuum tubes needed significant electrical power, which meant heavy batteries. And they were fragile. Shake them too much, and the delicate filaments inside could break. And the cost? Well, this was equipment that put RC firmly in the realm of dedicated hobbyists with deep pockets. But technology, as it always does, kept moving forward. In 1951, something called flyball actuators appeared. These were an early attempt at achieving finer control. Instead of simple on-off escapements, flyball mechanisms used spinning weights and centrifugal force to create smoother, more proportional movement. The idea was borrowed from old steam engine governors, those beautiful spinning ball devices that regulated engine speed. It was progress, small steps, toward the dream of smooth, intuitive control. Engineers and hobbyists were getting closer, bit by bit. And it's worth remembering, even in these early days, even when most people were building their own systems from scratch, commercial sets did exist. Companies were beginning to see the potential. The Berkeley Super Aerotrol is often cited as one of these pioneering commercial systems. Ready-made, or at least, more ready-made than building everything yourself. These commercial offerings helped spread RC beyond the most dedicated tinkerers, making it accessible to more people, though still a considerable investment. The community was growing. Clubs were forming. People were sharing knowledge, techniques, troubleshooting tips. The foundation was being laid. And then, a quiet revolution arrived in a small metal can. The transistor. One transistor in particular captured the imagination of hobbyists and experimenters, the Raytheon CK722. Released in the early 1950s, it was one of the first transistors marketed to hobbyists at an affordable price. Before this, transistors were expensive, mysterious, available mainly to industry and military applications. But the CK722, this little component, opened doors. Radio experimenters and RC enthusiasts began incorporating transistors into their designs. They were tiny compared to vacuum tubes. They used far less power. They didn't glow hot. They were more reliable. And slowly, design by design, circuit by circuit, the possibilities expanded. By the early 1960s, the transformation was well underway. Transistors were replacing tubes across the board, shrinking RC electronics dramatically. What once required a bulky box of vacuum tubes, now fit into increasingly compact packages. Model airplanes could be lighter. Control systems could be more reliable. Batteries could be smaller. And with each improvement, remote control was becoming less of an exotic hobby, and more of a possibility for everyday enthusiasts. The technology was maturing. The stage was being set for an explosion of RC toys and models that would capture imaginations around the world. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, as you rest, just appreciate how far we've come in these early chapters. From Tesla's boat in 1898, to tethered toy cars, to home-built radio systems in garages, to the first transistors changing everything. The spark has been lit. The journey has begun. And there's so much more to discover. But that can wait until later. Rest now, and let these images of early innovation drift through your thoughts like radio waves through the evening air. Breathe slowly, and let's continue our gentle journey. We've reached the 1960s now, a decade of change, of refinement, where remote control begins to truly blossom. The pioneers have done their work. The foundation is laid. And now, engineers are solving problems, making things smoother, more reliable, more accessible. Each advancement building upon the last, like layers of sediment forming rock, slowly, patiently, over time. In 1960, a concept emerges with a memorable name, the galloping ghost. It's a single-channel control approach, and the name itself tells you something about how it worked. Imagine a signal that pulses, gallops, through the airwaves. One channel. Simple, but clever in its simplicity. Single-channel systems were economical. One frequency, one stream of pulses, and through careful timing and mechanical design, you could control your model. The galloping ghost becomes a known approach in the RC community, a stepping stone, a way to get into the hobby without the complexity and expense of multi-channel systems. Picture an enthusiast in 1960, building a simple model, installing a galloping ghost system, and experiencing that thrill of wireless control. It may only do one or two things, but those things feel like magic nonetheless. That same year, 1960, another concept enters the conversation: kick and duck, pulse proportional control. Now the name is whimsical, almost playful, but the idea behind it is serious. Pulse proportional concepts represent a refinement in how signals translate to movement. Instead of simple on-off commands, pulse proportional control varies the length or frequency of pulses to create more nuanced responses. Push the stick a little, and the control surface moves a little. Push it more, and it moves more. It's a step toward the kind of intuitive control that feels natural, where your intentions flow smoothly from controller to model. These concepts, documented in RC history timelines, show the community's relentless drive toward better control. Smoother, more precise, more like an extension of your own hands. And then, in 1961, something important happens. A relayless servo becomes commercially available. The Bonner Transmite is often cited as a landmark here. Let's pause on that word, relayless. Before this, many servos used electromechanical relays, switches that clicked and clacked as they operated. They worked, but they had limitations. They could be slow. They could wear out. They added complexity. A relayless servo, using solid-state electronics instead, was cleaner, more reliable, faster, quieter. It represented the maturing of transistor technology, now not just shrinking the receiver, but transforming the servo itself into something more elegant. You can almost hear the silence, the smooth hum of progress, as these new servos moved control surfaces with grace rather than mechanical clicking. It's a small detail, but small details matter when you're trying to keep a model airplane aloft, or navigate an RC boat across a pond. And speaking of smoothness, this era sees RC truly embrace proportional control. Think about the difference: continuous input versus click step. In the early days, you'd move a stick, and the model would respond in discrete steps. Click. A little left. Click. Center. Click. A little right. It worked, but it required constant attention, constant correction, like tapping a rhythm rather than playing a melody. But with proportional control, you move the stick smoothly left, and the control surface moves smoothly left. The degree of movement matches your input. It's intuitive. It's how you'd naturally expect things to work. And it makes flying, or driving, feel less like operating machinery, and more like an art form. This smoothness, this proportionality, becomes the standard, the goal, and gradually, system by system, it becomes achievable, and then affordable. Underneath all of this, a technical standard is emerging. Modern servos begin to standardize around something called PWM timing, pulse width modulation. Here's how it works, and don't worry if you drift off during this explanation. That's perfectly fine. The servo receives pulses, little bursts of signal, about every 20 milliseconds. That's the frame. And within each frame, the pulse might last anywhere from about 1 to 2 milliseconds. The length of that pulse, that tiny variation, tells the servo where to position itself. 1 millisecond pulse, all the way to one side. 2 millisecond pulse, all the way to the other. 1.5 milliseconds, dead center. Every position in between, determined by tiny fractions of a millisecond. It's beautiful in its precision, and it becomes a universal language, one that RC equipment still speaks today. Standards like this, they allow different manufacturers to work together. They create ecosystems. They make the hobby more accessible because components are interchangeable. But even the best control system in the world means nothing if your signal can't get through. And this brings us to frequency bands, and the perpetual challenge of interference. Toy RC commonly settled on certain frequencies. 27 MHz and 49 MHz were popular choices. These bands were allocated for general use, meaning anyone could use them without a special license. Perfect for toys and hobbyist models. But here's the problem. If you and your neighbor both have RC cars operating on 27 MHz, and you go to the park at the same time, chaos. Your controller might move their car. Their controller might move yours. Or worse, conflicting signals might leave both cars confused, frozen, or careening off in random directions. Anyone who grew up with RC toys in the 1970s and 80s, they remember this. The careful coordination at RC meetups. The gentlemen's agreements about who would use which frequency. The crystals you could swap in your controller and receiver to change channels. Each one a different specific frequency within the 27 or 49 MHz band. It was workable, but it required awareness, courtesy, and sometimes frustration when interference struck anyway. The airwaves were getting crowded, like a party where everyone's trying to talk at once, voices overlapping, messages getting lost in the noise. But relief was coming. By the late 1980s, narrow band allocations are highlighted as an advancement. Instead of wide channels where signals could slosh around and interfere with neighbors, narrow band technology tightened things up. More channels could fit in the same spectrum. Signals were more focused, less likely to bleed over and cause problems. It's less crowding at the party. Everyone gets their own conversation, their own space in the electromagnetic spectrum. And RC becomes more reliable as a result. You can go to the park and have more confidence that your car will respond to you, and only you. While all this technical evolution is happening, something else important occurs. The community is growing, sharing knowledge, building culture. In May 1960, a major UK magazine launches Radio Control Models and Electronics. Now that might not sound dramatic, but think about what a magazine means. It's a gathering place, a monthly touchpoint where enthusiasts can learn new techniques, see new products, read build articles, share their accomplishments. Before the internet, before YouTube tutorials, magazines like this were how knowledge spread. They were how a hobbyist in Scotland could learn about a technique developed by someone in California. They documented the state of the art. They inspired the next generation. Radio Control Models and Electronics, and magazines like it around the world, they weren't just publications. They were the glue that held the community together. And they helped transform RC from scattered individuals tinkering in isolation into a proper hobby, with shared standards, common vocabulary, and collective progress. Now, while hobbyists were refining their craft and pushing boundaries, something else was stirring. The commercial world was paying attention. Because if RC could work for serious hobbyists, why not for children? Why not for everyday consumers? The seeds of the RC toy industry were being planted. In 1955, a Japanese company called Masadiya, they advertised something called a rad icon radio control bus. Picture it, A tin toy bus, colorful lithographed metal, and somewhere inside, radio control components. It's a bridge between traditional tin toys and this new electronic frontier. Masadiya was known for creative, playful toys. And here they are, recognizing that radio control doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be just for hobbyists building model aircraft. It can be fun. It can be whimsical. It can be a toy that brings joy to a child. The Radicon bus, it's early. It's primitive by later standards. But it represents vision. It represents someone looking at this technology and seeing not just technical achievement, but play, wonder, the beginning of an industry. 3 years later, in 1958, another company enters the story. Nikko is founded. And if you know RC toys at all, you know that name. Nikko becomes one of the major brands, producing countless RC cars, trucks, and vehicles over the decades to come. In 1958, they're just starting. But they're starting with timing. The technology is maturing. Transistors are making things possible that weren't possible before. The market is ready. Children are ready. Parents are ready to buy these magical toys that seem like something from science fiction. Nikko and companies like them. They're about to transform RC from a niche hobby into a mainstream phenomenon. From something you built yourself, into something you could find on a toy store shelf. But that transformation, that explosion of RC toys into popular culture, that's a story for another segment. For now, rest in this moment of transition. The 1960s, when serious hobbyists were perfecting their craft, when standards were emerging, when frequencies were being tamed, and when the commercial world was just beginning to see the possibilities. Technical refinement meeting commercial opportunity. Engineering excellence meeting playful imagination. The stage is set. The pieces are in place. And soon, very soon, RC toys will be everywhere. But for now, let these thoughts settle gently, like dust motes in afternoon sunlight, as we pause in our journey through time. Let's drift into the mid-1960s now, where something wonderful is happening. RC technology, once confined mostly to airplanes and boats, is coming down to earth. Literally. The RC car is about to be born. Picture Germany in the mid-1960s. A company called Schuko, working with Hegi, they offer something special. An RC Porsche Carrera 904 GTS kit setup. Now just let that sink in for a moment. A Porsche, one of the most beautiful sports cars ever designed, rendered in miniature, and you can control it, drive it, make it respond to your commands. This isn't just a toy, it's a scale model, a replica of something real, something desirable, something that represents speed and engineering excellence. And the fact that you could build it yourself from a kit, that made it even more special. You weren't just buying a finished product. You were assembling it, understanding how it worked, making it yours. Schuko and Hegi, they understood something important. People don't just want to control vehicles. They want to control vehicles they care about. Vehicles that mean something. And a Porsche, well, that means something. The same year, 1966, becomes a landmark moment in RC history. Several things happen almost simultaneously, as if the world suddenly realized the time was right. Testers, a company known for model kits, announces an RC Mustang model with multi-channel control. Think about that. Not single channel. Not simple proportional. Multi-channel. You could control multiple functions, steering and throttle, making the driving experience genuinely dynamic. The Mustang, America's iconic muscle car, now in RC form. Beautiful. And that same year, 1966, Nikko launches its radio-controlled vehicle line. Remember, Nikko was founded in 1958, and now 8 years later, they're ready. They've watched the technology mature. They've planned. They've designed. And now they're entering the market with purpose. Nikko's vehicle line, It's the beginning of what will become a dynasty. They're not just making one model and hoping for the best. They're launching a line. Multiple vehicles. A commitment to this category. A bet that RC cars are going to be big. And they're right. Also in 1966, another company enters the story. LG. They're often credited with producing some of the early viable RC cars, like a Ferrari 250 LM model. Another beautiful sports car, another dream vehicle, brought into the realm of radio control. LG. The name isn't as well known today as Nikko or Tamiya, but in 1966, they're pioneers. They're figuring out how to make RC cars that actually work reliably, that can handle the stresses of driving, that can turn properly, that can be controlled with precision. Because here's the thing, making an RC car is harder than it seems. An airplane flies through air, smooth, yielding air. A boat moves through water. But a car? It has to deal with friction, with traction, with the ground. It has to turn corners without flipping. It has to handle bumps. The engineering challenges are different, and LG is solving them. 7 years pass. The technology continues to improve. Manufacturing techniques advance. Markets develop. And in 1973, Nikko makes another important announcement. They say they're beginning to produce their full manufacturing line. This is the industrialization of RC toys. Not small batches. Not limited runs. Full production. Factories tooled up. Supply chains established. Nikko is going all in, betting that the demand is there, that the market is ready to embrace RC cars in large numbers. And once again, they're right. Because 1973, the same year, something else happens that confirms the market is real. A company called Char-G. They're selling RC nitro cars. Cars powered by tiny internal combustion engines that run on nitromethane fuel. And they're not selling hundreds. They're selling tens of thousands. Tens of thousands of RC nitro cars. Think about that scale. These aren't cheap toys. Nitro cars are serious. They're loud. They smell like racing fuel. They require maintenance. They're for enthusiasts. And yet, the market is absorbing tens of thousands of them. It's proof. Proof that RC has moved beyond niche hobby. Proof that there's a hunger for this. A desire to experience the thrill of controlling fast, powerful machines. Even if those machines are small enough to hold in your hands. But we haven't seen anything yet. Because in 1976, everything changes. Tamiya, a Japanese company known for exceptional scale models, they released the R/C Porsche 934. And this car, this beautiful replica of the racing Porsche 934, it ignites a boom. Historians credit this model with transforming the RC car market. And it's not hard to understand why. The Porsche 934 is gorgeous. The attention to detail is exquisite. The kit is well designed. And it performs. It drives beautifully. It's fast. It's controllable. It's everything an RC car should be. But more than that, Tamiya understands branding. They understand that people want authenticity. They want officially licensed replicas of real race cars. They want to feel like they're driving something that exists, that matters, that has history and prestige. The R/C Porsche 934, it captures imaginations. Hobby shops can't keep them in stock. People who've never thought about RC before, they see this model, and they want it. They need it. A boom is born. And Tamiya, they're just getting started. 3 years later, 1979, Tamiya releases 2 more models that become legends. The Sand Scorcher and the Rough Rider. These aren't sleek sports cars. These are off-road buggies. Rugged, tough, built to handle dirt, jumps, rough terrain. The Sand Scorcher and Rough Rider, They helped define what off-road RC kits can be. They popularized the category. Suddenly, RC isn't just about smooth pavement and scale racing. It's about adventure, getting dirty, building jumps in your backyard or at the local park, catching air. The off-road RC scene, it brings a different energy. It's more forgiving in some ways. You don't need a perfect smooth surface. It's more spectacular, jumps and crashes and rooster tails of dirt. And it appeals to a broader audience, kids who want action and excitement, not just scale realism. Tamiya, with these releases, they're not just making products. They're creating culture. They're defining what RC can be. And they're not alone. Because something interesting is happening in the background. As RC cars are rising, another hobby is declining. Slot car racing. You remember slot cars, perhaps? Those electric cars that run on grooved tracks, following a slot in the surface. They were huge in the 1960s. Racing leagues, dedicated tracks, commercial raceway facilities. But by the 1970s, the slot car boom is fading. And what do slot car companies do? Many of them pivot into RC. They bring their understanding of racing, of competition, of building community around miniature vehicles, and they apply it to this new frontier. These companies help shape early RC racing culture. They establish tracks, organize races, create rules and classes. The competitive infrastructure. The idea that RC isn't just playing alone in your driveway but competing against others. That comes partly from the slot car world transitioning into RC. It's a beautiful example of how one hobby can birth another. How enthusiasm finds new outlets. How communities evolve but maintain their essential spirit. And then, the 1980s arrive. And RC cars become everywhere. A huge mass-market toy category. Not just hobby shops anymore. You can find RC cars in department stores, toy stores, catalogs. They're at every price point, from simple cheap toys to sophisticated hobby-grade models. Every kid wants one. Birthday presents, Christmas morning. The thrill of tearing open the package, seeing that car inside, loading batteries into the controller, and driving for the first time. The 1980s. RC cars are part of the cultural landscape. They appear in movies, in advertisements. They're aspirational and accessible at the same time. You can spend $20 on a basic model, or hundreds on a top-tier setup. There's something for everyone. Manufacturers are competing, innovating, releasing new models constantly, different body styles, different drivetrain configurations, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, on-road, off-road, stadium trucks, buggies, monster trucks. The variety is dizzying, the creativity is boundless, and the market keeps growing. Racing leagues form. Magazines dedicated to RC cars launch. Communities build tracks in parks and parking lots. People modify their cars, upgrade components, chase speed and performance. It becomes a lifestyle for some, a passion, and manufacturers respond with better and better technology. Oil-filled shocks for smoother handling, ball differentials, sophisticated suspension geometry, bodies made from lightweight Lexan that can take a beating, brushed motors giving way to more efficient designs. Every year brings improvements. Every season brings new releases. The pace of innovation is exhilarating. And through it all, from that mid-1960s Schuko Porsche kit, to the slot car companies finding new purpose, to Tamiya's transformative models, to the mass-market explosion of the 1980s, what we're witnessing is the maturation of an art form. RC cars aren't just toys anymore. They're not just models. They're a medium for engineering creativity, for competitive spirit, for the pure joy of control and speed and mastery. A child holding a controller in 1985, making an RC car dance through an obstacle course in the backyard. They're connected to Tesla's boat from 1898. They're part of an unbroken chain of innovation and wonder. The technology has become smaller, more accessible, more refined, but the fundamental magic remains the same. Control at a distance. Machines that respond to our will. The thrill of making something move, turn, accelerate, jump, without touching it. The RC car boom of the 1970s and 80s, it's not just a market phenomenon. It's a cultural moment. A time when technology and play and accessibility all converged, and millions of people, young and old, experienced the joy of remote control. And we're still not done with the story. There's more to come. More innovations. More transformations. But for now, rest here in the 1980s, in the golden age of RC cars, when the boom was in full swing, and the future seemed limitless. Let your mind drift across imaginary racetracks, through clouds of dirt kicked up by tiny tires, listening to the whine of electric motors and the roar of nitro engines, feeling the satisfaction of a perfect lap, the camaraderie of racers, the simple pleasure of a well-tuned machine. This is the boom. This is the moment when RC cars conquered the world. And it's beautiful. Settle in, and let's talk about something special. A gateway. A doorway between two worlds. For many enthusiasts, their journey into serious hobby RC didn't begin with an expensive kit from a hobby shop. It began simpler than that. It began with a toy. A department store RC car. Something affordable. Something their parents could justify buying for a birthday or holiday. Toy RC became a gateway into hobby RC for many, many enthusiasts. And that's a beautiful thing, because it means that accessibility, that lower barrier to entry, it didn't just create casual players. It created lifelong passion. A child receives a toy-grade RC car. Maybe it's their first one. They drive it around the driveway, the living room, the park. They crash it. They fix it. They learn how it works. And somewhere in that process, a spark ignites. They want more. More speed. More control. More realism. More challenge. And eventually, they find their way to a hobby shop. They see the kits. The serious models with metal parts and oil-filled shocks and multi-speed transmissions. And they're hooked. They've graduated. But they never forget where they started. That toy RC car, it wasn't just a toy. It was an invitation. An on-ramp to a lifelong hobby. And there was a time, the late 1980s and early 1990s, when toy RC reached its absolute peak. Historians and collectors, they often call this period the golden age of toy RC. Think about what that means. Golden age. Not just a good time, not just successful years, but a peak, a zenith, a moment when everything aligned perfectly. The technology was mature enough to be reliable but still improving rapidly. The market was hungry, competition was fierce, innovation was constant, and toy RC had penetrated popular culture so deeply that it was simply everywhere. This era, this golden age, it's often described as dominated by two giants. Teo from Japan, and Tyco from the United States. Teo and Tyco. Say those names to anyone who grew up in this era, and watch their eyes light up. These weren't just companies making products. They were creating memories, shaping childhoods, building dreams. Teo brought Japanese engineering sensibility. Attention to detail, clever mechanisms, reliability. Their cars felt solid, well-made, like they could take a beating and keep going. Tyco brought American marketing energy, bold colors, aggressive styling. They understood spectacle. They understood what would look good on a TV commercial, what would make a kid stop and stare at a toy store shelf. Together, these two companies, along with others in the market, they created an ecosystem of competition that pushed everyone to be better, to innovate faster, to create more compelling products. And toy RC wasn't just visible in stores. It was visible everywhere. Pop culture embraced it. TV shows featured RC cars. Movies included scenes with them. They appeared in commercials, not just commercials for RC cars themselves, but as props representing fun, technology, excitement, and holidays. Oh, the holidays. RC cars became one of the ultimate gifts. Christmas morning, tearing open wrapping paper, seeing that box with a car on the front, the controller visible through a clear plastic window. The anticipation. The immediate need to install batteries and drive. RC cars. They were the gift that created instant gratification and lasting engagement. You could play with them immediately, but you'd keep playing for months, years, even. They had staying power. This cultural visibility, it created a feedback loop. More kids wanted them. More parents bought them. More stores stocked them. More manufacturers entered the market. More innovation happened. And the cycle continued, growing, expanding, until toy RC was simply part of the fabric of childhood in the late 80s and early 90s. There's something else interesting about this era too. Toy-grade RC shells, the bodies of these cars, they often looked very scale, very realistic. Detailed molding, proper proportions, accurate styling cues, and this influenced hobby-grade styling. The line between toy and hobby, at least aesthetically, was blurring. A well-designed toy RC car could look just as good as a hobby-grade model. Maybe the internals were simpler, but the appearance? Impressive. This pushed hobby manufacturers to up their game too. If a $20 toy car could look that good, imagine what a $100 hobby car should look like. The aesthetic standards kept rising across the entire market. Now, let's look at some specific vehicles. Icons. Models that defined this golden age. Cars that people remember decades later. Tyco releases a radio-controlled Toyota Hilux pickup, and they release it globally. This is important. Global distribution. The same model available in Japan, and the United States, and Europe. The Toyota Hilux, already a beloved real-world truck, now in RC form. Pickup trucks. This is a crucial category, because in the early 1980s, RC pickup trucks become a major craze across multiple brands. Not just Tyco. Everyone's making them. There's something about a pickup truck that captures the imagination. It's practical. It's rugged. It's unmistakably American, or at least, it evokes that frontier spirit. And in RC form, pickup trucks look fantastic. The proportions work beautifully. The scale details, the bed, the cab, the wheels, it all translates perfectly to miniature. Kids could imagine their RC pickup doing all the things a real pickup does. Hauling, towing, off-roading. It was aspirational. A preview of the vehicles they might drive someday. And the timing was perfect. Real pickup trucks were becoming more popular in the 1980s. They were transitioning from purely work vehicles to lifestyle vehicles. And Toy RC reflected that trend, captured it, made it accessible to kids. But pickups weren't the only story. Between 1984 and 1987, Toy RC buggies hit peak popularity in the mass market. Off-road buggies, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, big knobby tires, exposed chassis, roll bars, everything that made them look fast and capable and ready for adventure. Buggies had a different appeal than pickups. They were pure performance, pure fun. They weren't pretending to be practical. They were about speed, jumps, getting dirty, and kids loved that. The buggy craze meant that every major manufacturer had multiple buggy models. Different sizes, different price points, different features. You could collect them, race your friends, build ramps and see whose buggy could jump farther. This was the era of backyard competitions. Neighborhood RC racing leagues organized by kids themselves. Makeshift tracks built from plywood and dirt. The social aspect of RC, kids learning to compete, to tinker, to problem solve when something broke. In 1986, Nikko makes a smart move. They release the Turbo Panther, and it's positioned strategically as a smaller, affordable 1/16 scale buggy. Now think about that positioning. Smaller means less expensive to manufacture, less material, smaller packaging, but 1/16 scale still feels substantial. It's not a tiny toy. It's a proper RC vehicle, just more accessible. And affordable is the key word. Nikko is creating an entry point, a buggy that a parent might buy on a whim, that a kid could save up their allowance for. That could be an impulse purchase, not just a special occasion gift. The Turbo Panther. Even the name is perfect. Turbo suggests speed, excitement, power. Panther suggests sleekness, agility, predatory performance. It's evocative. It makes you want to drive it. And Nikko doesn't just release it and hope for the best. Turbo Panther marketing reportedly includes TV commercials, real television advertising. This is significant investment. This means Nikko believes in this product enough to put serious marketing muscle behind it. Imagine being a kid in 1986, sitting on the floor watching Saturday morning cartoons, and a Turbo Panther commercial comes on. The car is jumping, spinning, kicking up dirt. The announcer's voice is excited. The music is energetic. And suddenly, you need that car. You absolutely need it. That's the power of TV marketing in that era. Before the internet, before YouTube influencers, TV commercials were how you reached kids, how you created desire, how you built brands. And the Turbo Panther, backed by those commercials, it becomes one of Nikko's success stories. One of those models that people remember fondly. That shows up in Remember When conversations decades later. This is the golden age in action. Companies like Nikko, like Teo, like Tyco, they're not just making toys. They're creating cultural touchstones, shared experiences. A generation of kids is growing up with these vehicles, learning from them, bonding over them. The 1984 Toyota Hilux, the pickup truck craze, the buggy boom from 84 to 87, the Turbo Panther in 1986. These aren't just products in a catalog. They're part of people's childhoods, part of their memories of summer afternoons and weekend adventures. And the beautiful thing is, these toy-grade vehicles coexisted with hobby-grade models. They didn't compete so much as complement. A kid might have a Turbo Panther for bashing around the neighborhood, and save up for a Tamiya kit to build and race seriously. Different tools for different purposes. Different joys. The golden age of toy RC, it's called golden for a reason. The innovation was flowing. The market was thriving. The culture was vibrant. Competition pushed quality up and prices down. Variety meant there was something for everyone. And most importantly, the barrier to entry was low. Any kid could experience the magic of RC. You didn't need wealthy parents or access to specialty shops. You could walk into a department store, a toy store, sometimes even a grocery store, and find RC cars waiting. Ready to bring joy. Ready to ignite passion. From that first Teo pickup released globally, to the pickup truck craze that followed, to the buggy boom that defined the late 80s, to clever positioned products like the Turbo Panther, this is an era of abundance, of accessibility, of pure, concentrated fun. And for many people, now adults, looking back, these vehicles represent more than toys. They represent freedom, imagination, the thrill of control, the satisfaction of mastery, the beginning of a lifelong love affair with remote control technology. The golden age, a perfect storm of technology, marketing, culture, and timing. It couldn't last forever. Nothing does. But while it lasted, it was magnificent. Rest now in these memories, whether they're your own or inherited through stories. Picture sun-faded boxes on toy store shelves. Imagine the sound of plastic wheels on pavement. Feel the weight of a controller in young hands. Smell the distinct scent of new plastic and electronics. This was the golden age. And it was beautiful. Let's continue drifting through this golden era, where things are getting interesting, where partnerships form, where innovations spread across borders, where the line between toy and hobby begins to blur in fascinating ways. Picture the mid-1980s. A company in Japan, Tyco, creates something called the Jet Hopper. It's a buggy, fast, fun, eye-catching design. And somewhere in an office at Tyco, the American toy giant, someone sees potential. And so the Jet Hopper becomes the Turbo Hopper in the United States. Same vehicle, different name, different branding. This is how the global toy market works. Companies license designs. They rebrand products for different markets. They adapt marketing to local tastes. Tyco's Jet Hopper, Tyco's Turbo Hopper. Two names for the same joy. And it's a smart move by both companies. Tyco gets wider distribution and revenue from licensing. Tyco gets a proven design without starting from scratch. And kids in Japan and America both get to experience this vehicle, even if they call it by different names. This kind of partnership, it's common in this era. The toy industry is increasingly global. Good ideas spread. Successful designs get adapted. And everyone benefits. 1987 brings us another interesting case study. Radio Shack, known in some markets as Tandy, they distribute something called the Golden Arrow Buggy. And they distribute it globally. This is significant because Radio Shack is primarily an electronics retailer, not a traditional toy store. But Radio Shack sees the opportunity. RC cars are electronics. They're technology. They fit perfectly with Radio Shack's brand and customer base. People shopping for stereos and computers and CB radios. They might also want an RC car. The Golden Arrow Buggy. The name evokes speed, precision, quality. And Radio Shack's global reach means this buggy appears in markets all over the world. Same product. Consistent branding. The beginning of truly international distribution for toy RC. In Australia, the Golden Arrow debuts at $329 Australian dollars and 95 cents. Now that's not a trivial price in 1987. That's a significant purchase. A special gift. Not an impulse buy. But think about what that price represents. This is more than a simple toy. This is positioned as a quality product. Something worth investing in. Something that will last. Australian kids seeing this in stores, they're not just seeing another toy. They're seeing something aspirational. Something to save for. To dream about. And the fact that Radio Shack is willing to stock it at that price point, that shows confidence. Confidence in the product. Confidence in the market. Confidence that Australian families will see the value and make the purchase. Now let's jump to the early 1990s. The golden age is continuing, but evolving. And Tyco releases something remarkable. The super fast tracks. This vehicle is described by enthusiasts and collectors as almost hobby grade. Think about that phrase. Almost hobby grade. From a mass-market toy company. That's high praise. That's recognition that the gap between toy and hobby is narrowing. What makes something almost hobby grade? Better components. More sophisticated engineering. Improved durability. Enhanced performance. The super fast tracks, it's Tyco pushing the boundaries. Showing that toy RC doesn't have to mean compromised quality. That you can create something affordable and accessible, while still incorporating serious design principles. This is the natural evolution. As the market matures, as competition intensifies, as consumers become more knowledgeable, the baseline keeps rising. Yesterday's hobby-grade features become today's toy-grade standards. Between 1994 and 1996, we see another fascinating case of international product rollout. the Rebound 4x4. It spreads across the world in stages. First from Tamiya in Japan, then through Tyco releases in other markets. The Rebound 4x4 becomes something of a legend. And here's why. Its steering mechanism is unusual for a toy. It uses slip steer, left and right drive differences to create turns. Most toy RC cars, especially at this price point, they have a dedicated steering servo or mechanism. Turn the wheel on your controller, and a motor or actuator physically turns the front wheels. But slip steer is different. It's simpler mechanically, but also more challenging to master. The vehicle turns by driving the left and right sides at different speeds. Want to turn left? Slow down or stop the left side while the right side drives forward. The vehicle pivots. Want to turn right? Do the opposite. It's the same principle used by tanks, by skid steer loaders, by some real construction equipment. And in an RC car, it creates a distinctive driving feel. More aggressive, more drifty. You're not gently steering through a corner. You're forcing the vehicle to rotate. Some people love this. It feels powerful, direct, exciting. Others find it less intuitive than traditional steering. But everyone agrees, it's different. It's a distinctive engineering choice that gives the Rebound 4x4 its character. And the fact that this toy-grade vehicle uses slip steer, it shows manufacturers are willing to experiment, to try different approaches, to create variety in the market rather than making every car feel identical. The years pass. The market evolves. Companies rise and fall, merge and acquire. In 2014, something significant happens in the corporate world. Nikko, one of the giants we've been talking about, one of the pillars of RC toy history, is acquired by Toy State. Nikko, founded in 1958, launching their vehicle line in 1966, creating the Turbo Panther, producing countless iconic models over decades. Now part of a larger corporate structure. This is bittersweet for enthusiasts. On one hand, acquisition can mean resources, investment, continued production. On the other hand, there's always concern about losing that distinctive identity, that character that made Nikko, Nikko. But this is the nature of business. Especially in the toy industry. Companies consolidate. Brands become properties of larger entities. The important thing is that the legacy continues. That Nikko-branded products keep reaching kids. Keep creating joy. Now, here's something important we should acknowledge. Not everything that looked like RC actually was RC. Not all RC-looking toys were truly wireless. Some were wired knockoffs disguised as wireless. This matters, because imagine being a kid, or a parent, shopping for an RC car. You see something that looks the part. It has a controller. It has a car. The packaging makes it look exciting. But get it home, open the box, and there's a wire connecting controller to car. Disappointment, confusion, maybe even feeling a bit deceived. These wired knockoffs existed because manufacturers could make them cheaper. No radio components. No transmitter and receiver circuitry. Just electrical wires carrying signals. And they could package them to look like the real thing, hoping customers wouldn't notice until after purchase. It's a reminder that not all products are created equal. That marketing can be misleading. That the RC toy market, like any market, had its share of less scrupulous players trying to capitalize on the boom without delivering genuine value. But let's shift gears now. Because RC history isn't just about cars. There are other chapters, other categories, other forms of remote play that captured imaginations. Helicopters, for instance. From 1971 through the early 1980s, Mattel, one of the biggest toy companies in the world, runs a product line called Vertibird. 4 years. Multiple versions. Different models. consistent presence in toy aisles. Verti-bird. The name suggests vertical flight, birds, freedom, and visually, these toys look like helicopters. They have rotors. They have that distinctive helicopter silhouette. Kids seeing them imagine flying. Imagine piloting. Imagine aerial adventures. But here's the thing. Verti-bird isn't free-flying RC. It's not true remote control helicopters hovering wherever the pilot directs. The technology for that, 4 stable, consumer-grade RC helicopters, that doesn't really exist yet in the 1970s. It's too difficult, too expensive, too crash-prone. So Mattel creates something clever. Something that gives the feeling of flight, the experience of control, without the complexity of free flight. Verti-bird flies in circles around a base via arm and rod mechanics. Picture a central tower, a long arm extending from it, and at the end of that arm, a helicopter. The arm can rotate around the base, and the helicopter can move up and down on the arm, rising, descending, circling. The controller lets you control altitude, speed of rotation, whether the helicopter climbs or dives. And there are often accessories, targets to interact with, cargo to lift, missions to complete. It's constrained flight, guided flight. But within those constraints, there's genuine fun, genuine skill development, learning to time your altitude changes, to coordinate movements, to complete challenges. And for a kid in 1975, this is remarkable. This is as close to flying a helicopter as they can get. Sure, it's tethered to that central arm. Sure, it goes in circles. But it flies. It responds to their control. And imagination fills in the rest. Verti-bird represents an important principle in toy design. When you can't deliver the full dream, deliver a version that captures the essential experience. When free flight is impossible, create guided flight that still feels magical. Not everything needs to be completely unrestricted to be fun. Sometimes, constraints breed creativity. Sometimes, limitations create their own kind of joy. Verti-bird runs for years because it works. Because kids love it. Because it occupies a unique space in the toy market. It's not an RC helicopter in the modern sense. But it's not pretending to be. It's its own thing. Honest about what it is. Excellent at what it does. And this willingness to create different kinds of remote play, different interpretations of control, this expands the whole category. RC doesn't have to mean just cars driving freely. It can mean helicopters on guided paths. It can mean boats in pools. It can mean vehicles that slip steer instead of traditional steering. The variety, the experimentation, the willingness to try different approaches, this is what keeps the market vibrant. What keeps innovation flowing. What ensures there's something for everyone. From Teo's jet hopper becoming Tyco's turbo hopper, to Radio Shack's golden arrow reaching Australia, to the almost hobby-grade superfast tracks, to the unique slip-steer rebound, to corporate acquisitions like Toy State buying Nikko, to wired knockoffs trying to deceive, to Verti-bird creating its own category of guided flight. This is the rich tapestry of RC history. Not a straight line. Not a simple story. But a complex, fascinating evolution involving technology, business, creativity, and the endless human desire to control things from a distance. Rest now with these images. Helicopters circling on mechanical arms. Cars drifting on slip-steer mechanisms. Packages on Australian toy store shelves. The Tyco and Teo logos. The Radio Shack branding. All of it part of one connected story. The story of how we learned to play, remotely. Let's settle back into Verti-bird for a moment, because there's more to this story. More richness to explore. Mattel understood something fundamental about play. Kids don't just want a generic helicopter. They want context, story, a reason to fly. a mission. And so Vertibird had many themed versions: police, rescue, SWAT, each one giving children a different narrative framework, a different way to engage their imagination. The police Vertibird, you're chasing criminals, surveying the city, responding to emergencies. The rescue version, you're saving people, lifting injured hikers from mountainsides, dramatic missions of heroism. The SWAT helicopter, tactical operations, serious business, high stakes. Each theme came with appropriate decorations, decals, color schemes, sometimes accessories that matched the narrative. A stretcher for the rescue version, equipment for the police helicopter, details that reinforced the fantasy. And then, Mattel went even further. Licensed versions. Battlestar Galactica Vertibird. For kids who watched that science fiction show, who dreamed of space battles and colonial vipers, now they could have a Vertibird styled like the ships from their favorite series. This is brilliant marketing. This is understanding that properties, brands, stories from TV and movies, they create emotional connections. A child doesn't just want a helicopter. They want to be part of a story they love, to interact with a universe they've seen on screen. Vertibird with these themed versions, it becomes more than a toy. It becomes a way to extend the experience of watching TV, to participate in the narrative rather than just observe it. And Vertibird wasn't just an American phenomenon. It was sold internationally and localized in many markets. Different packaging for different countries. Translations. Regional variations. The same core mechanism, but adapted to feel appropriate and accessible wherever it appeared. This international reach, it shows how universal the appeal is. Kids in Germany want to fly helicopters just as much as kids in America. Kids in Australia dream of rescue missions too. The specifics of marketing might change, the language on the box, the particular licensed properties available, but the fundamental desire to control flight, that's global. And Vertibird achieved something rare. It became visible in popular culture itself. Not just as a toy advertised during commercial breaks, but integrated into actual programming. A Hawaii Five-0 episode airing November 28, 1975. It shows Vertibird. Think about that. A primetime television drama, one of the most popular shows of the era, and there's a Vertibird. Maybe a kid playing with it in a scene. Maybe used as a plot element. But visible. On screen. Validated. For kids watching that episode, seeing Vertibird on Hawaii Five-0, it must have felt amazing. Their toy, in their show. Proof that Vertibird isn't just a toy. It's culturally relevant. It's part of the world. This kind of visibility, it's priceless. It creates desire in kids who don't have a Vertibird yet. And it creates pride in kids who do. They can point at the screen and say, I have that. Vertibird represents one kind of remote play, guided flight on a mechanical arm. But the world of remote control toys is about to expand in a different direction entirely. Let's talk about programming. About teaching toys to remember, to execute sequences, to follow plans. The year is 1979. And something arrives that will fascinate children and adults alike. Big Trak. Imagine a six-wheeled vehicle. Futuristic design. Angular. Almost military-looking. Not cute. Not soft. This is serious. This is a machine. And on top of this machine, a keypad. Buttons with commands. Arrows. Numbers. Function keys. Big Trak is a programmable vehicle. And that word, programmable, it carries weight. It suggests computers. Intelligence. A step beyond simple remote control into something more sophisticated. Here's how it works. You don't control Big Trak in real time like an RC car. You don't steer it moment by moment. Instead, you program it. You tell it what to do. A sequence of commands. And then, you press go, and Big Trak executes your program. Forward 2 units. Turn right 30 degrees. Forward 5 units. Fire the photon beam. Turn left 45 degrees. Forward 3 units. Each command entered on the keypad. Each one stored in memory. Big Trak can store up to 16 commands. That might not sound like much by today's standards, when your phone has gigabytes of memory. But in 1979, for a toy, 16 commands is impressive. It's enough to create complex paths, intricate missions, real problem-solving challenges. And there's something magical about the process. The planning phase, where you think through your route, where you calculate distances and angles. The programming phase, carefully entering each command, double-checking, making sure you've got it right. And then, the moment of truth. Press go, step back, and watch Big Trak execute. Sometimes it works perfectly. Your program was correct. Big Trak navigates exactly as planned, reaches its destination, completes the mission. The satisfaction is immense. You've successfully communicated with a machine. You've made it understand. Other times, it doesn't work. Big Trak veers off course, bumps into furniture, ends up somewhere unexpected. And then comes the debugging. Figuring out what went wrong. Was it the angles? The distances? Did you miscalculate? Where did the program break down? This is computational thinking. This is problem solving. This is, in a very real sense, learning to program. And it's 1979. Home computers exist, but they're rare, expensive, not in most households. But Big Trak. Big Trak is accessible, affordable, a way for kids to experience programming without needing a computer. And Big Trak has style. That blue photon beam headlamp. When Big Trak fires its photon beam, the light flashes. There's a sound effect. It's dramatic. It's science fiction. It makes you feel like you're controlling something powerful. Something from the future. The photon beam isn't just decoration. You can program it as part of your sequence. Navigate to a target. Fire the beam. It becomes part of the mission. Part of the narrative you create. And there's more. Big Trak has a trailer accessory. A cargo carrier that attaches to the back. And this trailer, it can be programmed to dump its cargo. Imagine the possibilities. Program Big Trak to navigate across the room. Stop at a specific location. Dump its cargo. Return to base. It's a delivery mission. A transport operation. You can create scenarios. Challenges. Games where Big Trak has to deliver things to specific spots. The dump mechanism is clever in its simplicity. It's time-based. When you issue the out command, the command to dump, the trailer motor runs for approximately 3 to 4 seconds. No sensor feedback. No confirmation that dumping is complete. Just run the motor for a few seconds, and trust that gravity has done its work. This time-based approach, it's simple. Reliable. It doesn't require sophisticated sensors or feedback mechanisms. But it also means you have to understand the system. You can't say, dump until empty. You can only say, run the dump motor for the programmed duration. It's another layer of learning. Another aspect of the system to master. Big Trak captures imaginations. It sells well. It becomes one of those toys that defines an era. Kids who had Big Trak, they remember it decades later. They remember the keypad, the sounds, the satisfaction of a successful program, the frustration of debugging, the creativity of designing missions. But like many toys, Big Trak eventually fades. Production ends. The 1980s pass. The 1990s, the 2000s, Big Trak becomes a memory. A collector's item. Something people search for on eBay to recapture a piece of childhood. And then, 2010, a licensed revival by Xeon Limited. Big Trak returns. Updated slightly for modern safety standards and manufacturing, but fundamentally the same. The same keypad. The same concept. The same joy. This revival, it speaks to Big Trak's enduring appeal. New generations can experience it. Parents who played with Big Trak as kids can share it with their children. The cycle continues. Museums, institutions that document the history of technology and play, they describe Big Trak as a landmark programmable toy. Some claim it as the first programmable toy vehicle. The first accessible programming experience for children. Whether it's truly the absolute first, that can be debated. There are always predecessors, earlier experiments. But Big Trak is certainly among the first to achieve widespread commercial success, to reach hundreds of thousands of children, to actually matter in the broader cultural landscape. And that's what counts. Not just being first technically, but being first to make an impact, to change how kids think about toys, to introduce concepts that will shape future interests and careers. How many programmers? How many engineers? How many people working in technology today trace their first exposure to programming back to Big Trak? How many got their first taste of computational thinking while playing on the living room floor, entering commands on that chunky keypad, watching a six-wheeled vehicle execute their will? It's impossible to quantify, but the impact is real. Big Trak mattered. Big Trak changed things. From Vertibird's themed versions creating narrative contexts, to its international reach proving universal appeal, to its appearance on Hawaii 5.0 validating its cultural relevance, to Big Trak's revolutionary approach of programmable play, of teaching kids to think in sequences, in commands, in programs. This is the diversity of remote control toys. Not just cars. Not just simple real-time control. But helicopters on arms. Programmable vehicles. Different approaches to the same fundamental human desire. To make things move according to our wishes. To extend our control beyond our immediate physical reach. Vertibird offered guided flight and themed adventures. Big Trak offered programming and problem-solving. Both were remote control. Both were toys. But they satisfied different desires. Engaged different parts of the mind. Created different kinds of memories. And this variety, this willingness to experiment with different forms of remote play, this is what keeps the category alive. What keeps it evolving. What ensures that each generation finds something that speaks to them. Rest now with these images. Helicopters circling with police markings. A Battlestar Galactica Vertibird in flight. Big Trak on a living room floor, its photon beam flashing, its wheels turning according to plan. The trailer tilting, dumping its cargo of toy blocks or army men. These are the machines of childhood. The teachers of play. The spark of futures yet unfolding. And the story continues. Always continues. Because the human imagination, paired with technology, creates endless possibilities. Endless remote possibilities. Close your eyes and imagine the mid-1980s. The future is everywhere. Movies show us robots and artificial intelligence. TV shows feature mechanical companions. And in homes across the world, families are beginning to wonder, could we have our own robot? Not someday. Not in some distant tomorrow. But now. Today. A real robot in the living room. Tomy, the Japanese toy company, they see this desire, this hunger for the future, and they create something to satisfy it. The Omnibot line. Robots that target those home robot fantasies that permeate 1980s culture. Picture it. A humanoid robot. Not quite person-sized, but substantial. Features that suggest a face, a personality. Arms, wheels for mobility, and most importantly, the promise of functionality, of doing things, of being useful, or at least, entertainingly attempting to be useful. Omnibot isn't trying to be a toy that looks like a robot. It's trying to be an actual functioning home robot, within the constraints of 1980s technology and consumer pricing. There's ambition here, vision, and the engineering is clever. Omnibot includes a cassette deck. Yes, a cassette player, right in the robot's body. And this cassette deck serves a dual purpose. First, you can record and play back command sequences, similar to Big Trak's programming, but using audio tape instead of electronic memory. You put the robot in record mode. You control it manually. Move forward, turn, raise an arm. Each action creates signals that are recorded onto the cassette tape. Then, you rewind, press play, and the robot executes the recorded sequence. It's programming through playback. Your actions preserved on magnetic tape, ready to be performed again and again. Need the robot to bring you something from across the room every morning? Program it once. Record it to tape. Play it back daily. But the cassette deck does more. It plays audio too. Regular music. Recorded messages. You can have your Omnibot roll into a room, playing your favorite song, or playing a greeting you've recorded. It becomes a mobile sound system, a messenger, a performer. The cassette deck, already familiar technology, repurposed brilliantly. Everyone knows how to use a cassette tape. Everyone has blank tapes. No special equipment needed. Just imagination. And Omnibot can run sequences on a timer. This is where the home robot fantasy really activates. Imagine setting Omnibot to wake you up in the morning. The timer triggers at 7 a.m. The cassette starts playing. Omnibot rolls to your bedside, playing an alarm sound or music. Maybe even a recorded message in your own voice saying, "Time to wake up." It's automated assistance. It's a glimpse of smart homes decades before smart homes exist. It's the future, or at least, a charming approximation of it. Omnibot represents aspiration, the desire to live in a world where robots help us, where technology serves us, where the Jetsons' fantasy becomes real. And for a few thousand families in the mid-1980s, it does become real. Omnibot rolls through their homes, brings them things, entertains them, makes them feel like they're living in tomorrow. But Omnibot is expensive, complex, aimed at the higher end of the market. What about something more accessible? Something for kids who want a robot, but whose parents won't spend hundreds of dollars. Tamiya releases Verbot. And this is designed to hit a different price point. To be attainable. Verbot's original price is commonly listed as US $60. That's accessible. That's in range for a birthday present, a holiday gift, something a dedicated kid might even save their allowance for. $60 in 1984. Adjusted for inflation, that's still well over $100 in modern money. Not cheap, but not prohibitive. Not ask your parents for months and maybe get rejected anyway. Expensive. It's special occasion, affordable. And what do you get for $60? A voice-controlled robot. That's the hook. That's the magic. You talk to it, and it obeys. Verbot uses a separate voice controller, a handheld unit, powered by a 9V battery, that contains a microphone and simple voice recognition circuitry. Not sophisticated by modern standards. Not Alexa or Siri, but functional, real. You speak commands into the controller. Forward, turn, stop. The controller processes the sound, identifies the command, and transmits a signal to Verbot. And Verbot responds. It's limited. You have to speak clearly. Use the specific words it recognizes. Train it to understand your voice. But when it works, when you say, forward, and Verbot rolls forward, it feels like science fiction made real. Verbot can drive, move around on wheels, navigate your bedroom floor or the kitchen linoleum. And it has arms. Manipulators. Simple pincer-like hands that can pick up objects. Small lightweight things. Toy blocks. Poker chips. Items specifically designed to be verbot compatible. The task is simple, but completing it feels like an achievement. Verbally command your robot to drive to an object. Command it to grab that object. Command it to bring it back. Mission accomplished. You've coordinated a robot operation using only your voice. And there's a delightful detail. Verbot's mouth moves when it talks. It doesn't actually speak words, not real speech synthesis, but it makes sounds. Beeps and chirps and electronic noises. And while it makes these sounds, the mouth area moves, opens and closes, creating the impression of communication, of personality. This is anthropomorphization, making the robot feel alive, feel like a character, a companion, not just a machine, but something with presence, something you can relate to. Verbot is described as approximately 9 inches tall, not huge, not imposing, but mid-sized, big enough to feel substantial, small enough to play with comfortably, to carry around, to store on a shelf. 9 inches of 1980s robot technology. 9 inches of voice-controlled future. And for many kids, Verbot becomes a cherished possession. A glimpse of what robots might become. A toy that feels genuinely advanced. But while Tomy is creating home robots and voice-controlled companions, across town, another company is thinking about robots differently. Nintendo, already a major player in video games. They're preparing to launch the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America. The NES. A console that will revitalize the video game industry after the crash of 1983. And they have an idea. A strange idea. A bold idea. What if the video games could interact with a physical robot? July 1985. Japan sees the release of the Family Computer Robot. In Japan, the Nintendo Entertainment System is called the Famicom. Family Computer. And this robot, this accessory, it's designed to work with it. 3 months later, October 1985, Nintendo launches ROB in North America. Robotic Operating Buddy. The name is friendly, approachable. This isn't a scary futuristic automaton. This is your buddy, your helper, your player too. ROB sits near your TV, on a table or shelf, positioned where it can see the screen. And certain games, specially designed games, they flash signals on the screen, patterns of light. And ROB's eyes, optical sensors, they detect these signals. Based on what it sees, ROB moves. Its arms rotate. Its hands grip. It can pick up accessories, gyros that spin, blocks that stack. And these physical objects, they interact with the gameplay. You play the game with your controller, and ROB performs physical actions that affect the game state. It's hybrid play, digital and physical merged. The game tells ROB what to do, and ROB's actions feed back into the game. It's unlike anything that's come before. Now, in practice, ROB is slow, very slow. The optical communication takes time. The motors are deliberate. Watching ROB pick up a gyro and move it, it requires patience. The gameplay isn't fast-paced or exciting in the traditional sense. And only 2 games really support ROB Gyromite and StackUp. The library is tiny. The actual utility is limited. But that's not the point. Not entirely. ROB serves another purpose. A crucial purpose in 1985. The video game market crashed in 1983. Stores are wary of video game consoles. Parents remember the crash. The oversaturation. The terrible games. There's skepticism. Resistance. But ROB makes the NES look different. Look innovative. Look like more than just another video game system. It's a robot. It's educational. It's futuristic technology. ROB gets the NES into stores, into homes, gets past that initial resistance. And once the NES is in the home, once families start playing Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda and Metroid, ROB's job is done. Most people stop using ROB after a few sessions. The games are too slow, too limited, but they keep playing NES. ROB was the Trojan horse, the foot in the door, the bridge between the old skepticism and the new acceptance. And in that role, ROB succeeds spectacularly. The NES becomes one of the most successful game consoles ever. It revitalizes the industry, creates franchises that endure to this day. ROB's actual functionality as a robot toy, that's secondary, almost irrelevant in the grand scheme. But as a marketing tool, as a symbol, as a physical representation of innovation, ROB is invaluable. And for collectors today, ROB is beloved, not because the games are great, but because of what it represents. The audacity, the creativity, the willingness to try something weird and ambitious. From Omnibot's cassette-based programming and timed morning routines, to Verbot's voice control and moving mouth, to ROB's hybrid digital-physical gameplay, the mid-1980s is alive with robot dreams. Different companies, different approaches, different price points, but the same underlying desire to bring robots into homes, to make the future tangible, to let people, especially children, interact with technology that feels advanced, special, magical. Omnibot at the high end, offering sophistication and genuine utility. Verbot in the middle, making voice control accessible. ROB as a unique gaming peripheral, pushing boundaries even if the execution is flawed. Each one matters. Each one contributes to the culture. Each one plants seeds in young minds, seeds that grow into careers, into passions, into the next generation of roboticists and engineers and designers. A kid playing with Verbot in 1984, commanding it to pick up blocks. Maybe they go on to study robotics in college. Maybe they work on autonomous vehicles or industrial robots or the next generation of home assistants. A kid watching ROB slowly manipulate gyros in 1985. Maybe they're fascinated by human-computer interaction, by the bridge between digital and physical. And maybe that fascination shapes their future. These toys, they're not just entertainment. They're inspiration. They're education through play. They're dreams made physical. And they're all remote. All controlled from a distance. Whether through recorded commands on cassette tape, or voice recognition through a microphone, or optical signals from a TV screen, the principle remains. We command. The machine obeys. Control without touching. Rest now with these mechanical friends. Omnibot rolling through a hallway, playing a cassette tape. Verbot's mouth moving as it chirps acknowledgement. ROB slowly, patiently, picking up a spinning gyro. These are the robots of the 1980s. Not the robots we were promised by science fiction, but the robots we got. The robots that were possible. The robots that tried. And in their trying, in their imperfect but earnest attempts to be useful, to be entertaining, to be futuristic, they succeeded in something more important than functionality. They inspired wonder. And wonder, that's the real magic. Let's linger for just a moment more with ROB, because there are details worth savoring. ROB officially supports 2 Robot Series games. Just 2. Gyromite and Stack Up. That's the entire library. The complete catalog of games designed specifically for robotic interaction. Gyromite, you control a character navigating levels. And ROB manipulates physical pillars that press controller buttons, raising and lowering barriers in the game. It's Rube Goldberg gameplay. Wonderfully convoluted. Stack up. More directly about ROB's capabilities. You command ROB to stack colored blocks in specific patterns. The game shows you the goal. You watch ROB slowly, methodically, attempt to achieve it. 2 games. Limited. But each one a genuine attempt to explore what robot game interaction could mean. And the technology is fascinating. ROB uses optical photosensing. It watches the TV screen. Specifically, it watches CRT screens, cathode ray tubes, the old bulky televisions with curved glass fronts. Modern flat screens don't work with ROB. The timing is different. The light emission is different. ROB was designed for CRT technology, and it's dependent on it. Which means, today, to use an original ROB, you need period-appropriate equipment. A CRT television. The original NES. The original games. It's a time capsule. A snapshot of 1985 technology, perfectly preserved. ROB recognizes 6 distinct commands. 6 different light patterns flashed on screen. 6 instructions it can understand and execute. Move arm up. Move arm down. Open hands. Close hands. And so on. 6 commands. Seems so simple. So limited. And yet, with careful sequencing, with patient programming by the game designers, these 6 commands create surprisingly complex behaviors. It's elegance through constraint. Making the most of limited capabilities. A design philosophy that respects what's possible while pushing boundaries. Now, let's leap forward. Through the late 1980s. Through the 1990s. Into a new millennium. The year 2000. Technology has advanced dramatically. Microprocessors are powerful and cheap. Sensors are sophisticated. Manufacturing techniques have improved. And robot toys are about to experience a renaissance. The iCybe robot dog era. Spanning from 2000 to 2006. Think about this. Not a humanoid robot. Not a utilitarian home assistant. A dog. A robot pet. This taps into something primal. People love dogs. Dogs provide companionship, comfort, joy. But dogs also require care. Feeding, walking, cleaning up after. Not everyone can have a real dog. Apartments don't allow them. Allergies prevent them. Time constraints make them impractical. But a robot dog, that's different. That's companionship without the complications. Play without the responsibilities. iCybe is sophisticated for its time. It has sensors. Responds to touch. To sound. To light. It can see obstacles and navigate around them. It makes sounds. Moves in dog-like ways. Sits. Lies down. Even does tricks. And here's something remarkable. iCybe can self-recharge via a docking station. You don't manually connect charging cables. The robot dog, when its battery runs low, it can find its charging station, position itself, and recharge automatically. This is autonomous behavior. This is the dog taking care of itself. And it makes the robot feel more alive, more independent, more like an actual pet that has its own needs and routines. The docking station sits in a corner. iCybe roams, plays, and when needed, returns home to rest and recharge. It's a complete ecosystem, a closed loop of robotic pet ownership. iCybe runs for 6 years, multiple versions, different models. It builds a following. People form attachments to their robot dogs, mourn when they break, search for replacement parts. This is the power of robot pets. They're not just toys. They become companions, members of the family, in a limited but genuine way. Late 2000. Another robot pet appears. Techno the robotic puppy. And Techno comes with huge sales claims. Millions of units. Massive market penetration. Techno has many functions. Many emotions. It responds to touch with different reactions. Pet its head, it's happy. Pull its tail, it's upset. Ignore it, it gets sad. Feed it a bone accessory, it's content. The emotions, they're simulated through sounds and movements and LED displays. But they're convincing enough. Engaging enough. Kids bond with Techno. They learn to care for it. To read its moods. To interact appropriately. Techno represents the refinement of robot pet design. Taking the concept, making it more expressive, more responsive, more emotionally engaging, and making it affordable enough for mass market success. The late 1990s and early 2000s, this is the era when robot pets prove they're not a gimmick. They're a legitimate category. One that will continue evolving, leading eventually to more advanced versions. Ibwa from Sony. Pleo the dinosaur. Each generation more sophisticated than the last. But let's shift perspective now. Because remote control isn't just about finished products. Toys you buy and play with as is. There's another approach. Construction toys. Build-it-yourself systems. And these are about to get remote brains. Lego. The iconic Danish building block company. They've long had motorized sets. Trains that run on tracks. Models with moving parts. But these have been simple. Battery-powered motors. On-off switches. Basic functionality. Through the years, Lego's remote and control systems evolve through distinct generations. Each one more capable than the last. Responding to available technology. To customer desires. To the creative possibilities that engineers imagine. Train systems get remote control. Power systems become more sophisticated. And then, control systems. Programmable control. Lego Technic Control Center. Set number 8094. This is significant. This is Lego embracing programmability. The Control Center introduces programmable motor control to Lego. You're not just turning motors on and off anymore. You're creating sequences. Timed operations. Coordinated movements across multiple motors. Set 8094 uses the newer 9V motor system. This is important from a technical standpoint. 9 volts provides good power, reliable operation. And the standardization means compatibility across different sets and components. The control center includes 2 motors, 2 independent outputs you can control, and you program them using a physical interface. Buttons and switches on the control unit. You set timings, sequences, which motor runs when, for how long. It's not computer programming. You're not writing code, but you're thinking algorithmically, sequentially, if-then logic, duration control, coordination. The control center is described as programmable with multiple outputs, often cited as supporting up to 3 channels, 3 independent control pathways, which means, in a complex Lego Technic model, you can orchestrate 3 different motorized functions. A vehicle that drives, steers, and operates a crane arm. All coordinated, all programmable. This opens creative possibilities. Lego builders aren't limited to simple mechanisms anymore. They can create robots, automated factories, complex vehicles with multiple functions, and they can program behaviors, routines, sequences that run automatically. The control center, it's a bridge between traditional Lego construction and robotic control, between static models and dynamic machines, between toys and engineering education. Kids building with 8094. They're learning principles they'll use later. In programming classes. In engineering courses. In robotics competitions. Lego doesn't just teach building. It teaches thinking, systems thinking, computational thinking. And Lego continues evolving these systems. The control center is just one step. There will be more. More sophisticated control units. More sensors. Eventually, the Mindstorms line. Full robotic programming environments. Drag and drop coding. Complex behaviors. But we're getting ahead again. Let's stay in the mid-1990s. Because another company is forming. Another vision for remote-controlled construction toys. Rokenbok Toy Company is founded. The name might not be familiar yet, but it will be. To anyone who experiences what they create. Rokenbok has a vision. What if construction toys could be controlled remotely in real time? Not programmed sequences. Not automated routines. But actual RC control. Of vehicles you've built. In environments you've constructed. 2 years of development. Design. Prototyping. Testing. And then, Rokenbok releases its first toy sets. And they're unlike anything else in the construction toy market. Picture this. You build structures from modular pieces. Buildings. Conveyor systems. Ramps and elevators and sorting mechanisms. Its construction, similar to Lego in spirit, but with a different aesthetic. Different connectivity. Different focus. And then, you build vehicles. Trucks. Loaders. Transporters. And these vehicles, you control them with an RC controller. Real time. You drive them through your constructed environment. You're not just building static displays. You're building functional play environments. Warehouses where RC trucks load and unload cargo. Construction sites where RC loaders move materials. Industrial complexes where multiple vehicles coordinate to accomplish tasks. It's construction toy meets RC vehicle meets creative play environment. A hybrid category. Something new. Rokenbok appeals to a specific mindset. Kids who love building. Who love RC. Who love systems and logistics and making things work. Who want to create and then interact with their creations. The sets are substantial. The vehicles are robust. The control is responsive. You can have multiple vehicles operating in the same environment, controlled by different people, cooperating or competing. It's social building, social play, collaborative creation, or competitive challenges, racing, completing tasks, seeing who can transport cargo most efficiently. Rokenbok will grow over the years, expand its line, add electronic features, create increasingly sophisticated sets, build a dedicated following of enthusiasts who create massive custom layouts, invest hundreds of hours in their Rokenbok worlds. But in 1997, it's just beginning, just proving the concept, just showing that there's room in the market for this kind of hybrid play. From Arobi's 6 optical commands, to iCybe's self-charging dog behaviors, to Techno's emotional responses, to Lego's control center bringing programmability to building blocks, to Rokenbok merging construction with real-time RC control. This is the diversification of remote control. The expansion into new territories, new forms of interaction, new ways to play. Remote control isn't just cars on pavement anymore. It's robots responding to games, electronic pets navigating homes, programmable construction systems, RC vehicles in custom-built environments. The technology enables creativity, and creativity, when given tools, produces endless variation, endless innovation, endless new ways to experience the joy of control. Rest now with these images. Arobi's eyes watching a CRT screen. iCybe returning to its charging dock. Techno wagging its tail in simulated happiness. Lego motors whirring through programmed sequences. A Rokenbok truck climbing a conveyor belt in a custom-built warehouse. All of it remote. All of it controlled. All of it, wonderfully, playfully, joyfully, ours to command. The evolution continues. The story unfolds. And there's still more to discover. But for now, this moment of technological diversity, this celebration of different approaches to the same fundamental magic, this is enough. This is beautiful. This is the world of remote control, expanding in all directions, limited only by imagination. Let's return to Rokenbok for just a moment, because there are details that make it special. Rokenbok combines construction with infrared-controlled vehicles. Infrared, not radio frequency. This is a deliberate choice. Infrared requires line of sight. You have to be able to see your vehicle to control it. But it's simple, inexpensive, reliable indoors. And for Rokenbok's intended use, building environments on tables and floors, constructing warehouses and factories you can see entirely, infrared works perfectly. You're not controlling vehicles miles away. You're controlling them right in front of you. Line of sight isn't a limitation. It's just reality. Rokenbok supports multiplayer control. Up to 4 players. 4 different controllers. 4 different vehicles operating simultaneously in the same space. Each person on their own frequency, their own channel, no interference. Imagine 4 friends around a Rokenbok layout, each controlling a truck, coordinating to move cargo from one area to another, or competing, racing, seeing who can complete a delivery route fastest. The social dynamics are rich. The collaboration potential is tremendous. And here's something that bridges worlds. Some Rokenbok platforms use studs described as compatible with Lego. The building systems can interconnect. You can build a structure with Lego bricks, integrate Rokenbok components, add Lego details. The 2 systems talk to each other, play together. This compatibility, it's powerful. It means kids don't have to choose. They can use both, combine their collections, create hybrid creations that leverage the strengths of each system. Lego's incredible variety of pieces and colors. Rokenbok's RC vehicle integration and specialized industrial components. Together, they're more than the sum of their parts. This is what happens when toy companies embrace compatibility rather than fighting it. When they recognize that creativity flourishes when walls come down, when systems can merge. Now, let's talk about a revolution. A technical revolution that transforms hobby RC forever. The years 2004 and 2005. 2.4 GHz spread spectrum technology hits mainstream hobby RC. The spectrum era begins. 4 decades. RC operated on specific frequencies. 27 MHz, 72 MHz. You chose a crystal, a specific channel within those bands. And you hoped nobody else at the park or track was using the same channel. Because if they were, interference, chaos, loss of control. The ritual before flying or racing, checking frequencies, coordinating with other hobbyists, placing frequency pins on a board to claim your channel. It worked, but it was limiting, stressful, always a potential source of conflict. And then, 2.4 GHz spread spectrum arrives. And everything changes. Spread spectrum doesn't use one narrow frequency. It uses many. It hops between frequencies. Rapidly. Constantly. And it uses sophisticated digital protocols to ensure your transmitter and receiver stay synchronized. Stay connected. Even in a crowded electromagnetic environment. The practical result? You turn on your transmitter. You turn on your receiver. They bind to each other. They establish a unique encrypted connection. And then, you drive or fly. Without worrying about anyone else. Without frequency coordination. Without pins and boards and negotiations. Modern expectations, like binding, like interference resistance, they all follow from spread spectrum advances. These things we take for granted now. They were revolutionary in 2004. Multiple people can fly RC helicopters in the same park. Simultaneously. No planning required. No conflicts. The systems simply work. Coexist peacefully. Each locked to its own transmitter through digital magic. 2.4 GHz spread spectrum democratizes RC in a fundamental way. It removes barriers, reduces stress, makes the hobby more accessible to newcomers who don't understand frequency management, more enjoyable for veterans who are tired of coordinating. The technology isn't perfect. There are rare situations where interference still happens. But compared to the old systems, it's miraculous. It's one of those advances that, once you experience it, you can never go back. Hobby RC in 2005 and beyond, it's simply better, more reliable, more user-friendly, more welcoming. And while this technical revolution is happening in the hobby world, another revolution is happening in the toy world. A revolution of scale. Let's talk about micro RC. Tiny remote-controlled vehicles. So small they fit in your palm. So light they barely weigh anything. And yet, fully functional. Genuinely controllable. Tomibit Char-G popularizes micro RC cars. These aren't the first micro RC vehicles ever made. But they're the ones that capture mainstream attention. That prove the market exists. That create a craze. Bit Char-G cars are remarkably small. Smaller than a Matchbox car. But they're proper RC. They have proportional steering. Variable speed. They're not just toys that go forward and spin. They're genuine miniature RC cars. And the controller, it's clever. The controller also acts as a charger. You don't need separate charging equipment. You don't plug the car into a wall. You put the car into the controller. The controller has batteries. And those batteries charge the car's tiny rechargeable cell. It's elegant. Self-contained. Everything you need in one package. The controller charges the car. The controller drives the car. Nothing else required. Bit Char-G listings commonly show 45 MHz operation. Not 2.4 GHz. Not spread spectrum. Traditional frequency management. But in such tiny, low-power implementations, the range is limited anyway. Maybe 10 or 20 feet. So interference is less of an issue than with larger vehicles. And the charge and play cycles are short. A few minutes of charging in the controller. A few minutes of driving. Then back to charging. The batteries are tiny. The runtime is limited. But it's enough. Enough for quick bursts of fun. Office races. Desk rallies. Quick competitions during lunch break. Bit Char-G becomes a phenomenon. Collectible. Multiple body styles. Different colors. Licensed designs. People collect dozens of them. Create custom tracks. Hold tournaments. The micro RC category is born. And others rush to join. Mid-2000s. Takara Tomy Q-Steer arrives. Using an infrared chassis system. Even smaller than Bit Char-G in some ways. Simpler. But equally charming. Equally addictive. Q-Steer cars are designed for indoor use. Smooth floors. Tabletops. The infrared control limits range. But indoors, that's fine. You're close to the car anyway. And they're affordable. Impulse purchase affordable. You see them at a store. They're cute. They're cheap. You buy one on a whim. And then, you're hooked. You want more. Different models. Different colors. The micro RC craze. It's about accessibility. About bringing RC to new contexts. You can't fly a full-size RC helicopter in your living room. But you can, maybe, fly something very small. Something designed for indoor spaces. Picoo Z. The name might not mean much at first. But to anyone who lived through this moment, it's iconic. Picoo Z is recognized by Guinness as the smallest RC production helicopter. At the time of its release, nothing else comes close. It's impossibly tiny, a marvel of miniaturization. And it's designed for indoor flight, infrared control, limited range. But in a bedroom or living room, it's perfect. You can hover, navigate, perform simple maneuvers. The sensation of flight, in your home, without needing special facilities or perfect weather. Picoo Z launches summer 2006. And early shipments reportedly sell out instantly. Immediately. Stores can't keep them in stock. The demand is overwhelming. Everyone wants to try, to experience indoor RC flight. Office workers buy them for desk flying. Parents buy them for kids. Enthusiasts buy them to tinker with. The appeal crosses demographics. Picoo Z isn't sophisticated by hobby standards. It's not stable. It's not easy to fly. It drifts. It's sensitive to air currents. Controlling it well requires practice, patience. But that's part of the charm, the challenge, the skill development. You start barely able to keep it airborne. After hours of practice, you can navigate it through doorways. Land it precisely. Make it dance. And when it crashes, which it will, frequently, it's so light that damage is minimal. Rotor blades are replaceable. The body is resilient. You crash. You fix. You fly again. The Picoo Z era, it's brief but intense. A moment when indoor micro-helicopters are everywhere. When you walk into a store and see end-cap displays stacked with these tiny flying machines. When YouTube fills with videos of people flying them, modifying them, racing them. It's a craze in the truest sense. Sudden, intense, widespread, and while it eventually fades, while the next thing comes along, it leaves an impact. It proves that micro RC flight is viable, desirable, marketable. From Rokenbok's infrared construction vehicles supporting 4 players simultaneously, to 2.4 GHz spread spectrum revolutionizing hobby RC reliability, to Char-G making micro RC cars a phenomenon, to Q-Steer bringing infrared micro racing to even smaller scales, to Picoo Z achieving Guinness recognition and selling out globally. This is the early 2000s, a time of rapid innovation, of new categories emerging, of technology enabling experiences that weren't possible before. Micro RC works because electronics got smaller. Batteries got more energy dense. Manufacturing got more precise. Each advancement in technology, it opens new possibilities, new forms of play. And 2.4 GHz spread spectrum works because digital signal processing got powerful and cheap. Because sophisticated frequency hopping algorithms could run on tiny chips. Because engineers solved problems that seemed insurmountable decades earlier. Progress compounds. Each innovation builds on previous ones. And the pace accelerates. The mid-2000s, they're just the beginning. There's more coming. Always more. But rest here for now. In this moment of diversity. Of micro-vehicles racing on desks. Of tiny helicopters hovering in living rooms. Of 4 friends coordinating Rokenbok trucks in a custom warehouse. Of hobbyists discovering they can fly together without frequency conflicts. These are the small wonders. The technical marvels. The achievements that seem minor until you remember what came before. Until you appreciate how difficult these things actually are. How much engineering. How much iteration. How much trial and error. A Picoo Z helicopter, impossibly small, defying gravity in your bedroom. It's a miracle of modern manufacturing, of microelectronics, of human ingenuity applied to the simple desire to fly something. Anything, even if it's tiny. A Char-G car, smaller than your thumb, racing across a desk. It contains motors and circuits and batteries and RF components. all miniaturized, all functioning, all reliable enough for consumer use. These aren't just toys. They're testaments to what's possible, to how far we've come, to the relentless human drive to make things smaller, better, more accessible. The revolution is quiet sometimes, not dramatic. Just products appearing on shelves, technologies becoming standard, capabilities becoming expectations. But it's real, and it's beautiful, and it continues, ever onward, into smaller scales, higher frequencies, greater reliability, endless possibility. Rest now with these tiny machines, these small wonders, these revolutions measured in millimeters and megahertz. The story continues. But this moment, this achievement, this deserves appreciation, deserves recognition, deserves rest. Let's stay with Picoo Z a little longer, because the story deepens, because success, real success, creates ripples, complications, phenomena beyond the original product. When Picoo Z launches in summer 2006 and sells out instantly, that shortage doesn't just disappear. It persists. Weeks, months. Demand far outstrips supply. Factories can't ramp up production fast enough. And when genuine scarcity meets intense demand, resellers appear. People buying up available stock, listing them online at inflated prices. Reports emerge of Picoo Z helicopters selling for up to approximately $150. $150. For a toy that retails, when available, for maybe $20 or $30. The markup is staggering, exploitative, but also a testament to how badly people want this thing. How captivating the idea of indoor microflight is. Some people pay, desperate to get one, unwilling to wait, willing to spend 3 or 4 times retail just to experience what everyone's talking about. The reseller market thrives until supply catches up, until the factories finally produce enough to meet demand. It's a reminder that product launches are fragile, that anticipation and scarcity create opportunity for those willing to take advantage, that sometimes the hardest part isn't making a great product, it's making enough of them. Now, technically, how does Picoo Z work? It uses infrared, not radio. 2-channel proportional IR control is often cited. 2 channels means you control 2 things. Altitude, how high the helicopter flies, through throttle control of the main rotor. And yaw, rotation left and right, through a small tail rotor. That's it. 2 axes of control. You can't make it go forward or backward. You can't tilt it side to side. It hovers in place, and you control height and spin. Within those constraints, you navigate. By combining altitude changes with rotation, you can move the helicopter around a room, rising, spinning, descending, spinning back. It's indirect. It requires thinking spatially, planning movements. And proportional control means how hard you push the control stick affects how much the helicopter responds. Gentle input, gentle movement. Full input, aggressive response. It's nuanced. It rewards practice. But infrared has limitations. Serious ones. Bright sunlight can overwhelm IR control and cause loss of control. The infrared signal, it's light-based. And bright ambient light, especially direct sunlight, it swamps the receiver. The helicopter can't distinguish the control signals from the overwhelming background brightness. So Picoo Z and micro IR helicopters like it, they're indoor toys, or outdoor only in shade, in evening, in controlled lighting conditions. Fly one in bright daylight, near a window or outside, and you risk complete loss of control. The helicopter becomes a ballistic object. Crashes inevitable. This is a fundamental constraint of IR control. Radio doesn't have this problem. Radio waves pass through light, aren't affected by brightness. But IR is cheaper, simpler, And for indoor use, it's adequate. The Picoo Z itself, it's tiny and light. Often listed around 10 grams. 10 grams total weight. For reference, a standard AA battery weighs about 23 grams. The entire Picoo Z, rotor blades, body, motor, battery, electronics, all of it, weighs less than half a battery. And the dimensions are correspondingly small. The helicopter fits in your palm. You can hold it between thumb and forefinger. It's delicate, fragile looking, though surprisingly durable for its size. This extreme lightness is essential. It's what allows the tiny motor and battery to generate enough lift. It's what makes crashes relatively harmless. But it also makes the helicopter extremely susceptible to air currents. A person walking by creates enough air movement to affect flight. An open window is impossible to fly near. HVAC vents are no-go zones. Flying a Picoo Z well, it requires understanding your environment, reading air currents, timing your movements. It's surprisingly deep for such a simple toy. And remember, the controller doubles as the charger. Same elegant solution as Char-G. The controller has batteries, usually AA or AAA. The helicopter docks into the controller. Charging circuitry transfers energy from the controller's batteries to the helicopter's tiny rechargeable cell. Charge time, a few minutes. Flight time, a few minutes. The cycle repeats. You charge while resting, while planning your next flight, while switching with a friend who wants a turn. This self-contained design, it's perfect for the product. No wall chargers to lose. No USB cables required. Everything in one package. Simple, portable, ready to fly anywhere there's indoor space. But remember, infrared, and multiple people flying in the same space. That could be problematic. IR signals don't discriminate naturally. One controller could affect multiple helicopters. So Picoo Z variants use A, B/C channels to reduce IR conflicts. Different infrared frequencies or modulation schemes. Channel A helicopters respond to Channel A controllers. Channel B to Channel B, and so on. It's not perfect. Some crosstalk can occur, especially if controllers are very close to each other's helicopters. But it's workable. 3 people can fly in the same room. 3 Picoo Z helicopters dancing in the air simultaneously. Each pilot controlling their own. Mostly, the experience of group flying, it's chaotic, fun, social. Helicopters drifting into each other. Mid-air collisions that send both spiraling. Laughter, recovery, flying again. And Picoo Z's popularity, it spawns clones, imitators, cheaper versions from no-name manufacturers. Some nearly identical, some with slight variations. The market floods with micro-IR helicopters. Some good, some terrible, all trying to capture some of Picoo Z's success. But beyond clones, something more interesting emerges. A modding community. Enthusiasts who take Picoo Z helicopters and modify them. Lighter rotor blades for better performance. Different batteries for longer flight. LED lights for visual effects. Custom bodies. Paint jobs. Online forums fill with mod guides. Performance comparisons. Tips and tricks. The Picoo Z becomes a platform. A base for experimentation. A starting point for hobbyists who want to push boundaries. This is what happens when a product captures imagination. When it's accessible enough for many people to own, but interesting enough to warrant deeper exploration. Communities form. Knowledge accumulates. The product evolves through user innovation. Years pass. The Picoo Z craze settles. Other micro-helicopters appear. The technology matures. And in 2013, a new milestone. Silverlit surpasses the size record with Nano Falcon, even smaller than Picoo Z, earning its own Guinness recognition. The tiniest RC helicopter. The record broken. Progress continuing. Nano Falcon, impossibly small, almost absurdly tiny, flying with the same principles but taken to further extremes. The achievement is technical, impressive, but also a reminder that records are temporary, that miniaturization marches on, that what seems impossibly small today will be surpassed tomorrow. Now, let's shift to a completely different approach to toy flight. Because not everyone wants electric helicopters. Not everyone wants radio or infrared control. Some people, some inventors, they dream of flight powered by compressed air. Air Hogs is created. The brand emerges after Spin Master, a Canadian toy company, licenses a compressed airplane concept. Someone, an inventor, a tinkerer, they've developed a working prototype. A plane that flies using compressed air. No batteries, no fuel, just air pressure. Spin Master sees potential. They license the concept. They develop it into a consumer product. They create the Airhogs brand to market it. And in spring 1998, Airhogs Sky Shark debuts. A foam airplane. Lightweight, durable, with a small compressed air engine built in. You pump air into the plane using a handheld pump, building pressure, storing energy, and then you launch. The compressed air drives a propeller. The plane flies, soaring across parks and yards and fields. Sky Shark becomes an early breakout hit. Kids love it. Parents love it. It's novel. It's mechanical rather than electronic. It's outdoor fun that doesn't require batteries. That teaches basic principles of pneumatics and aerodynamics. The pumping mechanism. It's satisfying. Physical. You pump air. You feel resistance increasing as pressure builds. You see a gauge showing readiness. And then, launch. The tactile engagement is different from pushing buttons or moving joysticks. More embodied. More connected to the physical process of flight. Sky Shark isn't remote controlled in the traditional sense. You don't steer it in flight. You aim it, launch it, and watch it go. The flight path is ballistic, determined by launch angle and air pressure. But there's skill involved. Learning to aim, learning the right amount of pumping, reading wind conditions. It's a different kind of flying toy. More like a sophisticated paper airplane than an RC aircraft. But it captures imagination nonetheless. It creates outdoor play, encourages running, chasing, retrieving, launching again. Airhogs, with Sky Shark as its flagship, it establishes a category. Compressed air toys. The brand expands. Other aircraft. Different designs. Eventually, vehicles. Rockets. Each one using compressed air as the power source. There's something pure about it. No batteries to die. No charging required. Just a pump, and air, and mechanical ingenuity. It's sustainable in a way. Low-tech. Appropriate technology for outdoor play. And it's affordable. Without complex electronics. Production costs stay reasonable. Airhogs toys reach price points that make them accessible. Impulse purchases. Summer toys. Gifts that don't require much thought but deliver genuine fun. Sky Shark in 1998. It's part of a broader moment. RC toys are diversifying. Splitting into categories. Micro-electric flight. Compressed air flight. Radio control. Infrared control. Programmable vehicles. Construction systems with remote brains. The market is rich. Varied. There's something for everyone. Different approaches to the same fundamental joy. Making things move. Controlling motion. Experiencing mastery over objects at a distance. Or at least, experiencing the attempt. From Picoo Z shortage and reseller markups, to its infrared limitations in bright light, to its impossibly light 10-gram weight, to channels A, B/C allowing group flight, to the modding community it spawned, to Nano Falcon breaking its size record, to Airhog's compressed air innovation with Skyshark. This is the landscape of the late 1990s and 2000s. Innovation in all directions. Different power sources. Different control methods. Different scales. Different price points. All coexisting. All finding their audiences. Rest now with these images. A Picoo Z hovering in a bedroom, fighting air currents from an HVAC vent. Someone pumping air into a Skyshark, feeling the resistance build, preparing to launch. A Nano Falcon, almost invisible, it's so small, defying physics in someone's palm. These are the extremes. The boundaries being pushed. The records being set and broken. The innovations that seem frivolous until you consider the engineering. The problem solving. The iteration required to make them work. 10 grams of helicopter. Compressed air driving a propeller. Infrared signals carrying commands at the speed of light. Each one, a small miracle. Each one, worthy of wonder. Take a breath, and let's appreciate something important. Something we touched on but deserves fuller recognition. Airhogs shows that remote control toys weren't only radio RC. Some big hits were air-powered. They didn't use radio frequencies. They didn't use infrared beams. They used compressed air and clever mechanical design, and they were hugely successful. This matters because it reminds us that remote control is a broader concept than we sometimes think. It's not just about wireless signals. It's about control at a distance. Control through indirect means. And compressed air, with its pneumatic energy storage and mechanical release, that's a form of remote control. You control the flight, just not in real time. You control it through preparation. Through setup. Through launch. Airhogs carved out its own space. Proved that innovation doesn't always mean more electronics. Sometimes it means reconsidering the fundamentals. Finding simpler solutions. Creating experiences that feel different, fresh, engaging in new ways. Now, let's jump forward to 2016. Hot Wheels. The iconic toy car brand. They've been making die-cast cars since 1968. Millions upon millions of them. Racing on orange plastic tracks for generations. And in 2016, Hot Wheels pushes a hybrid. A system that combines RC cars with smart track racing. It's called various names depending on the specific product line, but the concept is consistent. Cars that can be controlled, but also guided by intelligent tracks. The system uses infrared sensors and encoded tracks for guidance. Picture a track, not just passive plastic, but embedded with IR emitters or markers. Patterns encoded into the track surface or edges. The cars have sensors. They read these patterns. They understand where they are on the track, what section they're in, what's coming next. And based on this information, the cars can assist the driver, or even drive autonomously for portions of the track. It's a spectrum of control. A hybrid between traditional RC, where you control everything, and slot cars, where the track controls everything. Hot Wheels offers multiple drive modes. Assisted to manual. In assisted mode, the track guides the car, keeps it centered, helps with cornering. You control speed, maybe some steering input, but the system prevents you from flying off the track. It's forgiving. Accessible to younger kids or beginners. In manual mode, you're on your own. Full control. Full responsibility. You can drive precisely, or crash spectacularly. It's traditional RC, but enhanced by the smart tracks feedback and features. The system had an October 2016 launch plan. Carefully timed for the holiday season. Maximum visibility. Maximum sales potential. This hybrid approach, it's interesting strategically. Hot Wheels is combining their track heritage with modern RC technology. Creating something that feels familiar, but enhanced. Not abandoning what made them successful, but adding layers of sophistication. It appeals to multiple audiences. Kids who want RC cars but struggle with traditional control. Parents who remember Hot Wheels tracks fondly and see this as evolution. Enthusiasts who appreciate the technology and want to explore the system's capabilities. Whether it achieved massive success, that's debatable. The market for smart track systems is smaller than for pure RC or pure traditional tracks. But it represents willingness to innovate, to try new things, to push boundaries even within an established brand. Now, let's talk robots again, because in 2004, something significant happens in toy robotics. Something that elevates the entire category. Wowie's RoboSapien launches. An IR remote toy robot designed by Mark Tilden. And the name Tilden, it carries weight in robotic circles. He's known for beam robotics, biology, electronics, aesthetics, and mechanics. A philosophy of creating robots that are organic in their movement and behavior, rather than rigidly computational. RoboSapien embodies this philosophy. It's humanoid, bipedal. It walks with a distinctive gait, not perfectly stable, but alive-looking, dynamic. It has articulated arms, hands that can grip objects, a head that turns, sensors that detect sound and objects, and it's controlled via infrared remote. Multiple buttons, different functions. You can make RoboSapien walk, turn, pick things up, dance, perform karate moves, execute programmed sequences. The range of behaviors is impressive. But what makes RoboSapien special, beyond its capabilities, is its personality. The movements aren't robotic in the stiff, mechanical sense. They're fluid, almost organic. There's character in the way it walks, the way it gestures, the sounds it makes. Kids don't just control RoboSapien. They bond with it. They give it personality through play. They create scenarios, stories. RoboSapien becomes a character, not just a machine. And the market responds enthusiastically. RoboSapien reportedly sells 1.5 million plus units between April and December 2004. In just 9 months, over 1.5 million units. Those are extraordinary numbers for a toy robot priced well above typical action figures or basic toys. It wins recognition. A Toy of the Year claim from the Toy Retailers Association. Industry validation. Proof that RoboSapien isn't just a niche product for tech enthusiasts. It's mainstream. It's culturally significant. RoboSapien's success. It elevates toy robotics as a category. It shows that robots can be mass-market products. That they can compete with traditional toys. That people want them. Will pay for them. Will embrace them into their homes and play patterns. Wowie follows up with more robots. RoboSapien V2. RoboSapien RS Media. Different robot designs. Each iteration adding features. Improving. Building on the foundation. And other companies take notice. If Wowie can sell millions of robots, maybe others can too. The toy robotics category expands. More players. More products. More innovation. This is how markets mature. A breakthrough product proves viability, creates awareness, establishes demand, and then, the ecosystem grows around it. Competition intensifies, quality improves, prices become more accessible, everyone benefits. Now, let's step back. Look at the bigger timeline. The infrastructure that enabled all of this. Nikko is founded. A company starting its journey. Not yet making RC vehicles. But laying groundwork. Building capability. Learning manufacturing. Nikko's RC vehicle line begins. Their first offerings enter the market. Modest beginnings perhaps. But the start of something lasting. A brand timeline milestone that marks their entry into a category they'll help define. Nikko begins full manufacturing line. Industrialization. Scale. Commitment. This is when they become a major player. When they transition from making RC vehicles to being an RC vehicle company. Full resources devoted. Production capacity established. These dates, they're not just corporate history. They're markers of industry development. When companies like Nikko commit fully to RC toys, they create stability. Supply chains develop. Expertise accumulates. Standards emerge. The toy RC industry, it needed companies like Nikko, like Teo, like Tyco, companies willing to invest long-term, to build manufacturing capability, to iterate products year after year, to create the infrastructure that makes toy RC viable and accessible. And here's something crucial, something we've touched on but bears emphasizing. The toy RC boom created a massive pipeline into the hobby world. Toy-grade RC, it served as a gateway, an on-ramp, an introduction to concepts and skills that would later translate to serious hobby participation. Think about the pathway. A child receives a toy-grade RC car at age 7. Simple, affordable, fun. They drive it. They crash it. They learn basic control. They develop interest. A few years later, age 10, maybe 11, they want more. More speed. More control. Better performance. They discover hobby-grade kits. They save money. They buy their first Tamiya kit. They build it carefully. They maintain it. They race it. By their teens, they're serious hobbyists. Building multiple models. Upgrading components. Participating in competitions. Understanding electronics and mechanics at a sophisticated level. And maybe, just maybe, this leads to career choices. Engineering school. Robotics programs. Careers in technology or manufacturing or design. The toy RC boom, it didn't just create a market. It created enthusiasm, knowledge, skills. It seeded entire generations with technical literacy, with hands-on understanding of motors and gears and control systems. Toy grade as a gateway. This is profound. This is toy companies, perhaps unknowingly, serving as educators, as recruiters for the hobby world, as developers of future engineers and designers. The hobby RC industry benefits enormously from this. Their customer base is constantly replenished. Kids who started with cheap toy cars, they graduate to expensive hobby kits. The ecosystem sustains itself, grows, thrives, and the toy companies benefit too. Some of those kids, they become nostalgic adults, collectors who seek out the toy-grade cars they had as children, who build collections, who participate in online communities dedicated to vintage toy RC. The pipeline flows both ways. Toy to hobby. Hobby to nostalgia. Nostalgia back to toy collecting. It's a cycle. Self-reinforcing. Creating lasting engagement across decades of a person's life. From Airhogs proving that remote control transcends radio, to Hot Wheels' 2016 hybrid smart track system blending assistance and manual control, to RoboSapiens' 1.5 million units in 9 months elevating toy robotics, to Nikko's timeline showing how companies build infrastructure over decades, to the recognition that toy RC creates pipelines into hobby RC and technical careers. This is the ecosystem view, the big picture, not just individual products, but how they relate, how they support each other, how they create something larger than themselves. Industries aren't just companies competing, they're communities cooperating, often unintentionally. Their pathways developing, their knowledge accumulating, their passion spreading from person to person, generation to generation. Rest now with this broader perspective. A child holding a cheap RC car in 1985. That same person building a competition-grade buggy in 1995. That same person working as an engineer in 2005. That same person collecting vintage toy RC with their own children in 2015. The timeline of one life, intersecting with the timeline of an industry. Personal growth mirroring technological growth. Childhood play becoming adult expertise. Toys becoming tools. Fun becoming profession. This is the power of accessible technology. Of toys that teach while entertaining. Of companies that build infrastructure, allowing passion to flourish. The gateway is real. The pipeline flows. And the industry, sustained by this constant renewal, continues evolving, continues creating, continues inspiring, continues offering control, at a distance, to anyone who reaches for it.